Hi everyone, this is Jamie Machik with the Nicolay Federated Library System, and I'm here with Tessa Michelson-Schmidt with the Wisconsin Department of Instruction, and she was supposed to speak at our meeting last Thursday at Barkhausen. We had some difficulties, so she graciously agreed to record her part of the presentation so you could still see what she was going to talk about. So Tessa, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Jamie, and hello, everyone. In Nicolay Federated Library System, I'm glad to offer some information to you, even though it's post-recorded. So I'm going to just give a few updates and then show a few things online. And certainly, since this is not live, just feel free to contact me or Jamie with any follow-up questions that you have. But let's begin by a few updates on the Growing Wisconsin Readers Initiative. So kind of picking up from where we left off before, and I realize that this isn't actually how it happened since I wasn't able to meet with you all last week, but previously we had met the day before Halloween in October 30th, 2013 at a multi-system workshop. And at that workshop, I gave an overview of the Growing Wisconsin Readers Initiative, and that was really kickoff. Or the kickoff, since it was a multiple day launch through systems workshops all over the state. But that was the first time that you had kind of the whole overview of what this early literacy initiative was like and how public libraries fit into that initiative. And also around that time was the initial distribution of those, and I believe most of you actually picked up for brochures and posters at that workshop. So here we are, a few more months down the line, and it's going to be the day before Valentine's Day, so I just thought that that was, interesting that it was the day before two holidays. And so Jamie had asked me to kind of give a Growing Wisconsin Readers update on where we are now as the initiative has rolled out. We're a few months down the line, and also kind of review what's coming up. So that's what I'm going to go over a little bit today. So first, again, just to kind of brush up depending on how you have interpreted or embraced the Growing Wisconsin Readers Early Literacy Initiative, or have been able to use your materials, or still trying to figure out your footing and figure out what this means for your library. I just wanted to review some of the main ideas of this because I think it's sometimes helpful to reinforce, yep, I understand that, or I heard that before, but it's really sinking in now. So I'm just going to touch on a few of the main things that are important to this initiative. So first of all, this image here that's on the screen, this adult male caregiver and young child reading a book, this is on many of the Growing Wisconsin Readers materials. It's on the brochure, it's on the poster, it's on the website. And I'm using it here because I do feel like this really ties in many of the main components of this initiative. Obviously, it's a young child being read to by a caregiver, but there are a few more things that I feel like we can interpret from this scene. The first is the main goal of the Growing Wisconsin Readers Initiative is that we're trying to develop literate lifelong learners. And I feel like that's something that every library in Wisconsin is working toward, and this just fits right in because we know, and we know more and more every day, of the importance of literacy and the importance of early literacy and really laying that framework from the very beginning. This has effects not only just by the time young children get to school, but also later in life in terms of the likelihood of having a successful career, the likelihood of ending up in jail or having health problems. All of these things do have roots in literacy experiences when children are very young. So we play a significant role in encouraging reading with little ones. And this initiative, the goal of it is to foster these effective reading experiences with the caregivers of young children. Unlike other early literacy initiatives or early literacy tools and resources out there, this one is not so much focused on training the librarians, but it's really helping librarians and other advocates in your community to help caregivers, help them foster these effective reading experiences. And sometimes that fostering is just kind of reinforcing and giving some encouragement. You're already doing a great job. This is really important. And sometimes it's doing something more deliberate by modeling what early literacy looks like and helping point out some tools and resources to help caregivers make that happen. So just again, that the focus of this is helping the caregivers. And the way that this initiative is structured is to provide as much community-specific support, that it's not something that, while it's a universal message and it's something that we're doing across Wisconsin and across Wisconsin public libraries, it's intended to be flexible enough to adapt to the different needs in your own community, since not every town is the same and we all have different resources and different things going on. This is intended to be flexible so that it can adapt to things that you might already have going on or things that you want to start. It's intended to be flexible in that way. And also, it's obviously something that is trying to support public libraries and support utilizing all the wonderful books and materials we have for children and young families at our libraries. So that's obviously a main goal of this, and not just because that's the business we're in, but because we have over 380 public libraries in Wisconsin, and these are free, egalitarian institutions where everyone is welcome. And there aren't a lot of places that we can say that you can go and get free reading material no matter what walk of life you're in. And so that's really important in terms of messaging early literacy, is that everybody can get what they need at the library. And lastly, a main message of this initiative is just the universal recognition of early literacy and growing Wisconsin readers. It's intended that, yes, we can acknowledge that statewide this is something we are doing and that public libraries are the home base of this initiative. But it's also something even on a smaller scale within a given community that parents and caregivers can see and recognize that different places and people that they interact with all care about early literacy. So if they're seeing the Growing Wisconsin Readers poster with this image you see right here, if they're seeing this at the grocery store or at the YMCA or at the Pizza Ranch or the nursery area at the church, if they're seeing this multiple places, it's just reinforcing that message that all these people think that early literacy is important and trying to encourage this, and they're all directing us back to the public library. So those are some of the main points of the Growing Wisconsin Readers Early Literacy Initiative. So I just wanted to review them because I think that they're very central to this, and again, just things that I think work for everybody involved. And will probably look different at your own library versus somebody else in Nicolay, but that's okay. That's what we want to have happen. And while I emphasize that this is for caregivers of children, where we're talking from birth through around age 6, although of course reading goes on forever, hopefully, we are talking also about early literacy advocates. So this primarily will be the librarians, but this is also could be the Head Start community, daycare providers. There are just all sorts of folks in your community who have a vested interest in early literacy. And so between these different parties, we hope to be sending the same message. And again, as I said in the fall, these arrows on here remind us that this is across the spectrum, that this, when we're talking about caregivers of young children, we're not talking just about families in, you know, on the low end of the socioeconomic spectrum of families living in poverty. And this is for everybody. It's for them, it's for the people in between, and it's for people who don't live in poverty. Early literacy applies to everybody, and our communities are stronger when all of our children are literate. And then likewise, in terms of libraries, this isn't just for libraries who don't have any early literacy things going on. It's for all libraries, whether they have an extensive early literacy program. This is something that we hope will complement those efforts. So reminder that this is all across the board. And also, and I think this is an important point, especially when I hope you are having conversations with people in your community and advocating for the library and advocating for early literacy, that we can acknowledge the multiple ways that this benefits our communities. Of course, we can see that early literacy does benefit families, and just in terms of some basic childhood development and family literacy things, we know that it forms a stronger bond and that it can just relate to better childhood health and family connections when reading is a part of their life. So we just know that. But we can also say that if we have more literate young kids or kids who are getting these pre-literacy skills, that they're going to be more ready for school. And that doesn't mean that we need to get them primed so that they are ready to be extremely fluent readers by the time they get to kindergarten or 4-year-old kindergarten, but it means that they've had enough experiences that they're hungry to learn more. That's what we mean by ready. And that has a huge benefit for our school systems, our school districts. And when our school districts are doing well, that also has effects on our communities and our towns. And that, again, like I said a little bit earlier, that early literacy does extend into life choices and life paths. And there's just a lot of growing research show how even just reading way back in those early years, the effects that it can have on life choices and life health down the road. So this isn't just something that's nice and quaint and conveniently reinforces things that libraries have been doing for a long time. It's actually quite bigger than that, and this is something that is important that we are able to communicate, whether it's to our library board or other stakeholders or even just people with whom we want to collaborate. And as stated, both in the fall and now, public libraries are the home base for Growing Wisconsin readers, and so often if I get phone calls from a school district or a health clinic or a daycare provider, and they want some of these materials, I direct them to contact their local public library to get those, because if they're contacting me, they don't know, you have no idea that they're even interested in this and that they are a potential partner or an ally in your community. So that's why public libraries are the home base and the place where people can get materials on Growing Wisconsin readers. And then we've also, this is where we are focusing different professional development opportunities and additional incentives for Growing Wisconsin readers. So for the materials, we're talking about the brochures, the posters, and some of the online resources. And for the professional development, we've had the workshops in the fall, and next month on March 21st, we are having a statewide symposium on early literacy engagement. And we'll be talking about some future trainings, whether they are something that's coordinated with systems or offered independently by systems. And then in terms of additional incentives or support, we had the mini grants that were offered to 40 libraries last year. We also have libraries who are just receiving LSTA grants for Early Literacy Project 2014, with 2015 applications opening up in a few months from now. And just highlighting these various efforts that libraries are doing on the Youth Services Showcase and also on the blog. So just to kind of recap where we were this first year, I don't need to go over a lot of this because it's already happened, but it's just been a very intentional buildup of what libraries need and how can we provide things in a way that works with what they're at and where they want to grow without being completely overwhelming. And so if we look at where we're going for year 2, hang on one moment. There we go. So right now, systems have just received their second shipment of this course material. And in that second shipment are not only more brochures and posters in English, but also brochures and posters in Spanish and Hmong. And your system is the place that you should go to for additional materials, and Jamie can fill you in on that. Other things that are developed this winter are the Growing Wisconsin Readers blog, which I'll show you in just a minute. And coming up, I said there's a symposium, And right after the symposium, we're going to follow up on a survey we did across the state last April with a Year 2 survey to follow up on. Okay, we got input on what you wanted in terms of an early literacy initiative. Now where do we grow? Do we need more print materials? Do we need additional training? What does this really look like now that you have had some use of the Growing Wisconsin Readers materials and resources? And then the summer, that's when the 2015 LSTA grant cycle will open. We'll also review the results of that survey and start shaping what direction we're going. We also anticipate that this fall we will place the final order of Growing Wisconsin Readers print materials. So this is something to be just thinking about in the long term. What are you using? What else would you like to have? Since the final state-funded purchase of these materials will likely be this fall, and then future purchases of the things will be up to libraries or systems on their own. So in thinking about this survey, just have in the back of your mind, what are you already using, or what things might you need that we could possibly offer as a state or through systems in terms of perhaps different tools or training or more of the same materials, different kinds of materials, or even just some experiences that you might be interested in having as relates to early literacy. So kind of keep those ideas in mind because the survey will be headed to your inbox in just a few short months. So here's just a quick shot of the other posters that are making their way to you. And as you can see, that main image is just very visible on all those posters. And again, that big blank spot in the middle left of the posters is for you to identify with your own message of your library or library contact hours. And there are the brochures. And just as a reminder, there are additional Growing Wisconsin Readers resources online for those of you who are doing 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program or are keen on getting one started. There is a template online that has the forms and everything right there. They each, all 10 pages have a different tip on them, and you can just type your library's name and print those off. So that's something that's already ready to go. And then the image on the right is kind of a tip sheet or an infographic emphasizing some of the main components on how to create a more effective reading experience with your young child. And that's something that you could use as an image on your website or use it as a tool as part of story time. I'm sure you can think of a million creative things to do with it. But those are just a couple of the things that are in addition to the brochures and posters. And for the symposium that's coming up, I know that a lot of you have registered already, but this is going to be a day-long affair that is free, and it's not just here's more information about early literacy, but it's really looking at engagement and what does this mean in terms of the relationship with a young child and its caregiver, but also the young child, the caregiver, and the book, or perhaps a screen, or the learning environment right around them. So we're going to have three recognized speakers talk specifically about screen time and developing interactive literacy areas and what does this mean in terms of children's brain development. So that's going to be a really exciting event, and there's still time to register. Registration closes on Friday, March 7th. So I hope that many of you will be able to come. It's free. So I'm now going to change screens, and first we're going to just review the Growing Wisconsin Readers website, and then I'm also going to show a couple things on the Growing Wisconsin Readers blog. So hang with me as we transition here, and here we go. So here is the Growing Wisconsin Readers website, and this is what it looks like here on my laptop. And it might look about the same if you were to look at it on a tablet or on a smartphone. This website was designed to be device responsive, meaning that it'll adjust to whatever kind of screen you're looking at. And so that's why that, for example, on this laptop here, there's a lot of green space behind, because that's how it's adapting for this particular screen. And this is intentional so that it doesn't become this big, overwhelming website that doesn't look anything like perhaps the poster that directs them there, or just typing in the URL. It still looks like what's on the brochure. Although what's on the website, there's a little bit more text here than is on the brochure. So if we just look at, just a moment here, if we just look at the website, I'm just going to scroll down so you can see it's not really long. It's not just this overwhelming thing. And if we glance at the main menu and we walk through, this babies page, for example, looks very, very similar to the babies column on the brochure. And all of the images are the same as much as we could, the fonts and colors, so that it looks very consistent. But down at the bottom, you'll see some additional things, such as this video of author and illustrator Denise Fleming, which you can open up in another screen. We'll do that right here. And this is something that you might be interested in showing families, perhaps at a story time or something like that. You know, you can just see from the screenshot that Denise Fleming is talking about how she creates the illustrations with her pulse painting technique. And this is just something that in conversations and things that I've been reading about, it's just really important to help educate young children and their caregivers of who actually is creating these books, and to help them think about their own story and what they have to share. Again, it's kind of broadening that idea of what does it mean to be literate and communicate. So that's just something to think about. It's not just a fun, jazzy thing to show a little video or link to it on your library's website. It's actually helping reinforce the ideas and identities about literacy. So again, the other pages, toddler and preschool and school, those are all very similar to what's on the brochure, except there's a little bit more text there. There are more authors to enjoy, and on each age group there's a different author illustrator to link to, with a link from teachingbooks.net. But the main thing I actually want to show you is the librarians page here. This page, the Resources for Librarians, has a lot of information on it, including a link right here to the blog if you can't remember the URL. And each of these here are anchor links going to some more of the information below. But here in brochures and posters is where you can see, where you can find the actual posters and brochures. If you wanted to, let's say in 2015 or 2016, you needed more brochures and you ran out of your final supply from the state, this is where you could potentially bring the file to a local printer and perhaps get some local funding to print some more. Or you just want to show one of them and have it online, it's right there for you. And this is also where there's a tutorial on how to print address labels for your brochures and some other things like that. In terms of promoting Growing Wisconsin Readers, right over here is that Growing Wisconsin Readers Tips, that snazzy infographic kind of thing. If that's something that you could use, that's right there. And also the Growing Wisconsin Reader logo and QR code, that kind of pops up as a zip file with the terms of use in there, and you can access that. Also, there are sample scripts created by Wisconsin librarians to help you in having that conversation again with your fellow allies in your community, the folks at Head Start or your local family daycare provider. How do you initiate the contact to talk about early literacy or ask them to put up a poster or share some of the brochures? Your peers have put together some examples of that on here. And then there are quite a few resources on here about just different literacy connections, the importance of childhood brain development, and all sorts of things like that are on here. In addition to some very specific things such as connecting with local child care providers in Wisconsin, connecting with Wisconsin literacy programs, and also a couple of specific library-related literacy things such as 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten and early literacy activity areas, two things that have been pretty popular around the state. These are links to more information about those in Google Maps that walk you through who's doing what around the state. So if you haven't taken a look at the Resources for Librarians page, I encourage you to do that because everything, the main things that we've talked about and share can be found on here. I did tell you that the link for the blog is here, and now I'm going to jump to that URL. It's just blog.growingwisconsinreaders.org. And the audience for the blog is primarily the advocates of Growing Wisconsin Readers. It's not intended necessarily for parents and caregivers, but for those who are trying to support parents and caregivers, such as yourself. And this blog there's usually 1 or 2 posts per week. You can follow by email, so you don't have to remember to come look. Just put your email in there, and you'll get a post when they go live. And these are a bunch of different things related to early literacy. And for example, today's post about some early literacy grants available for folks in Wisconsin, it's just general early literacy information and a resource about early literacy. So those are a couple of the tags. You can also just see here on popular posts what has been viewed the most. And so there are a couple of posts I can see related to the Growing Wisconsin Readers Symposium that are getting a lot of attention. And then as I just scroll down and look at past posts, you can kind of get an idea of what's there. You can also see if you have a question, you can put in your contact form. There's also an archive if you want to go back and find something. Or you can just say, search this blog. If there's something you're like, I know somebody has something from a mini grant on here, I want to see it, well, you can type that in. So again, not all of these things are on the Growing Wisconsin Readers website. They're kind of additional information and tools that if you are doing a lot of work with early literacy, they could really benefit you. This is a great resource here that I posted last week of a screen share about how to use iPad apps and your pre-reader that was very popular. Just some other things. This one is about other librarians in Wisconsin who have Pinterest boards related to early literacy, so if you want to follow your peers and see what they're curating and collecting. So again, it's just a little bit more information out there that is might be a little bit more time sensitive or just news of the moment, but it's not overwhelming. There's not a post every day, but there's a couple each week, and I think that you'll find some additional information to benefit your early literacy work. Now I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint, and had we been in person, I would have asked you if you had any questions, but this is just my reminder to let you know that I'm always available, whether it's via email or on the phone. Sometimes if you email me, I'm going to call you back because it's easier to chat on the phone. And certainly Jamie can be a resource, especially in terms of the Growing Wisconsin Readers shipment of materials or other things like that. But I hope to see many of you at the symposium. I know that it's not realistic for you all to get away, but I hope some of your Nicolay Federated Library System peers will be there. And again, keep thinking about things for this upcoming survey because this initiative can only be as good as what you talk to me about. And so I hope that you'll share your thoughts soon. And thank you for your time. And Jamie, thank you for making this happening to have a recording. And hope to see many of you soon in person.